Welcome to Noble Warrior. My name is CK Lin. Noble Warrior is where I interview multidimensional entrepreneurs about their spiritual disciplines. We'll deconstruct their mindset, mental models, actionable tactics, so you can take them and engineer your life, your business with more impact and fulfillment. If you have any entrepreneur friends who could use more inspiration and more permission to be who they are, go ahead and share this episode with them. They'll thank you for it. My next guest is Susan Harrow. She's a renowned media coach at PRSecrets.com. She's the author of the best-selling book, Sell Yourself Without Selling Your Soul. She's media trained thousands of CEOs, celebrities, chefs, startups, speakers for Oprah, CBS's 60 Minutes, The Today Show, Good Morning America, etc. We talked about how she coached introvert CEOs who resist going on shows, how she coaches her clients to remain calm and composed during even the toughest questions on TV. The 3 questions that she asks herself whenever she's unsure whether she should speak her mind. Her methodology to fine-tune her clients' target audience and messaging. How to connect with the audience, whether they're on Zoom or live in the studio. How to adjust your talk on the fly to meet what the audience needs. We talked about her spiritual practices right before she got on any shows. Please enjoy my conversation with renowned media coach, Susan Harrow. Welcome, Susan Harrow.
Great to meet you all.
Thank you so much for being here, Susan.
It's my pleasure. I'm so thrilled.
I want to jump right into it. In your bio, you had shared about the time that you almost got
I knew you were going to start.
sold into slavery. I can't, that's just such an opener. Please share with us how you went from that experience to Aikido black belt to where you are. So just paint us a little bit of a hero's journey there.
Yeah. So, I think that whenever we have whenever we travel, we have these amazing experiences, right? That sort of take us out and mark us for the future. That's what's so beautiful about travel and talking about those kinds of things. So, that was an experience where I don't know if you wanted me to actually go into it to say what happened, or should I just I think maybe go right into Aikido?
Whatever you like.
Yeah, I think I'd like to jump into Aikido because to me that was a really transformative experience right here in California. And I started Aikido. I didn't even know about it, but it was I know you talk a lot about synchronicity, so there was a series of synchronicity events where a woman was mentioning a particular leadership practice, and that was just lit up for me with a mentor. And what I did was immediately we were sort of on a little mini yoga retreat at a friend's house, and as soon as I got home, I looked up that person. It was Richard Stosey Heckler, who has a leadership practice which is all physically based. There's no PowerPoint. It's all movement, and it's based in Aikido. And I jumped on a group call with him, and really felt like I connected with wanting to be trained in more body-based leadership. I didn't know it was about Aikido. And so I listened to that, and then I asked to interview him for the Huffington Post, but I had never written for the Huffington Post. And I just said, I want to write a piece on you at the Huffington Post, thinking I'll figure it out later, not knowing how hard it was. At that time, they weren't having general people just write. You had to go through a whole process and write. And I said, I'm going to write an article on Huffington Post. Can I interview you? So I interviewed him.
I love that. That's like chutzpah.
Yeah,
I'm going to go for it.
Right, exactly. I thought I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
That's part of my future selfing too. It's like when I was teaching at the learning annex or teaching, I set the class and then figured out how to teach it later. So it's like, this is what I'm going to teach, and then I would
plan. You're a true entrepreneur. I love it.
Yeah. So he invited me up to his dojo and said, well, why don't I show you some of these practices? And then I went there, and I had never asked anybody to be my mentor before, and I didn't even know what that meant. And I said, I want you to be my mentor. I don't know what that means. Can we work something out? And we actually decided to do a trade. Then there was they were having the very first Ethiopian um, guy getting his black belt to take it back to like teach gangs and stuff in Ethiopia, Aikido. And I saw him do his black belt test. And it was so beautiful and so moving. I mean, I was like I was transported to another state. And, it was
Mm.
a wooden knife and just the flowing. And he was so beautiful. I mean, you could just see he was like this beautiful person inside and out, very tall and regal, like he was no, like he was a noble warrior, right?
No, thank you.
And so I decided on the spot that I wanted to train in Aikido. But little
Mm.
did I know how arduous it would be. I'm an athlete. I played tennis, I was on the boys tennis team and teaching tennis pro, captain of my volleyball team, number one on my badminton team, always considered myself an athlete. And then I get on the Aikido floor and I'm a dork, complete dork, stepping on people's toes, not knowing what to do. And I was so uncoordinated
Mm.
that nobody really wanted to train with me. There's a protocol in Aikido where you're on your knees and then when the teacher demonstrates the technique, and then you bow to the person next to you, and then you start to train. Well, because I was so klutzy, and people are usually really nice in a dojo, but I was so klutzy that people would get up and run to go train with someone else.
With no uncertain terms, it
No,
like it wasn't even subtle. It's just
it
like,
was not subtle.
nope, I don't.
No, it was not subtle, and I was completely mortified. I mean, I was
Oh my
thinking
god.
every night that I wanted to train, I was thinking I would go through this thing like, "I'm gonna be rejected." It was like all of those things, like, "I don't get it. I'm gonna be rejected." But I was so fascinated by it. It was like the biggest love-hate relationship.
Mm.
Every night after class in the car, I would go to my car and cry.
Mm.
I've never cried on the dojo floor.
Mm.
Even when I was training for my black belt test and I was working with, 5th degree or 6th degree black belt, and he actually clocked me with a
Mm.
Joe. I mean, I was almost knocked out. And I'm like,
Mm.
"I'm not crying. I'm going to put ice on my head," you know? Um, so never cry on the dojo floor, but I
Mm.
certainly cried pretty much every night because it was so difficult and it brought joy.
Mm. What kept you going though, in spite of all that physical pain or even emotional pain,
Yeah,
this whole internal resistance of inadequacy, like beating yourself
yeah.
up and all of that stuff, like what kept you going in
Yeah, and
spite of
some
all
people
that?
just do it, but it was with me, it was more like, there's the self-analysis and the difficulty in being so clumsy and thinking, just being on the dojo floor and in Aikido, there's no way you can hide. And while my practice in media training is all about not hiding, like showing yourself, there we still have methodologies to hide, but on the Aikido floor, there is nowhere to hide. So I think that all of my issues came up too. So you asked me what kept going. It was the most fascinating practice, and the philosophy of Aikido is turn your lead into gold, and that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I could see all my lead,
Mm.
and I thought I have a lot of lead here that can be transformed on the Aikido floor into gold. Um, and so I mean, everything comes up where, for example, if somebody grabs you too hard and, how to let them know without being bossy or, somebody you have to protect yourself, you have to protect others. Like it's sort of everything. And, even when like you'd have beginners, when I became a black belt, I would have beginners telling me what to do. And you go, okay, I can handle this a number of ways. You never want to shame anyone, but it's like you also want to share protocols and how we train. But my philosophy also is like, does this have anything to teach me? Are they right? Is this something that can help me? Or is it a time when I need to share a lesson and say, actually, on the dojo floor, you don't give instruction to another student unless it's asked for, you know?
Yeah, what you're sharing here, I want to underline this real quick. So in the Chinese culture, there's a lesson that's passed down. Basically, it's a 外圆内方, means on the inside it's rectangular, a la you know who you are, but on the outside it's circular as a way to play nice, right? To be cordial with everyone else. So
Mhm.
essentially, what you're talking about here is actually navigating that space of being grace, as at the same time knowing who you are and delivering who you are to others.
And delivering the message, like, there was one kid, he was very tall, he grew really fast. He was, very ADD, and at one point, he wasn't paying attention, so I hit him. Not hard, but I thought that was more effective than saying, "If you don't pay attention, I'm gonna throw you and you could get hurt." So I just hit him really lightly because that was the kindest thing to do in the moment,
Mm,
to bring him here, you know? And for the rest of the lesson, he was there and paying attention because it was dangerous to him if he didn't.
mm. I like that. What's the kindest thing in the moment?
I think that goes for everything, particularly like as for all of us. What's the kindest way that we can handle this situation? I was just rereading some of my notes with, I think it was Ilana Van Zant who said, "Do I need to say this? Do I need to say this now? Am I the right person to say it?" And I thought those were really interesting questions in terms of verbal, especially for women in verbal self-defense too. Like, who is on the receiving, we always have to think about who is on the receiving end of it and what is the consequence and the conclusion, what do we actually want to achieve through that communication. And on the aikido floor, it's when you're throwing someone, you want to have that spot in mind of where you're throwing them. You have to be
Mm,
very intentional about it because you also have to protect them. You can't throw them, everybody's throwing at the same time, so we could throw, it's dangerous, so you can throw somebody into another person, so you always have to be aware not only of what you're doing but of the other person and
mm,
the kindest way to throw them, to not hurt them. I mean, that's the philosophy of aikido as well. It's to do the least harm to your opponent even if someone is attacking you.
mm. If you don't mind going to that, I mean, there's a lot of life lesson just right there where you just share,
Mm.
right? What is the kindest thing, and then being environmentally aware, and at the same time not to purposefully, have the maximum damage to your opponent, which is very different than, let's say, the MMA war, right? The whole point of the MMA
Absolutely.
is you want to destroy the other person versus Aikido is about the practice. So I'm curious to know, this is more life philosophy. I'm just more inquiry. One person's point of view is more about like the social justice warrior, right? Let me, if it's not me who will say this person will never learn the lesson. Let me just exert myself versus what you share is what is the kindest way, the such that this person receive the message. And if this person doesn't necessarily receive the message, then perhaps you don't say it per se, right? So I'm curious to know how you navigate that space, especially this is, the verbal, the words. This is your
Mhm,
craft. So I'm curious
mhm,
to know,
mhm.
as a warrior, noble warrior with words, where do you stand on that? Do you just boom, let me deliver justice? Because if it's not me, then who? Or what's the kindest way that I deliver this?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I was always doing it the kindest way. Um, Here's the thing, it's not my business whether somebody gets it or not. That's number 1, and I think in media training, the number 1 thing is, not to take things personally, but also, there's only one person that we can control, and that's ourselves, and that's a really big job, and it's an ongoing process throughout our lifetime, right? So, you're never trying to control another person, and, It's the same in Aikido, but in like media training when you're on TV or a podcast like this, I'm not trying to direct you and what you ask me. You can ask me anything and I'm going to answer what I want. However I go. You are gracious and gave me the liberty. Not everybody will, and certainly at the higher levels of TV, reporters and hosts can be very pointed. But the whole training of media training and Aikido, whatever that is to master yourself and
Hmm.
to say only what you came to say to the audience in the way that you believe that how you want to serve. So I think the intentionality is first. What's my deepest intention? How do I want to serve? And
Mm.
then words come from that. And in my media training practice, I ask that question first. What's your deepest intention? How do you want to serve? What's your big vision? And then number two, what do you want for yourself, personally, professionally, physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally? Um, and then the last question, and what I'm asking you there, because media can give you the whole world. It can give you connections to people. It can give you financial success. It can give you, emotional happiness, whatever it is that you're looking for. But we want to be very clear about that. And then the third thing is, what do you want your audience to do? Like, what is the purpose of your? It's not to be famous. It's to grow your business or to expand your horizons or whatever. If you're on a book tour or you've got a new technology that you want to get into the world to help people, whatever that is. But like, what then do you want them to do? Are they visiting your brick and mortar store? Are they coming to your website and buying a program or a course? Or are you getting more speaking engagements? Whatever that is, we're very intentional about it. And then you to let that go and to only be, and this is Aikido media training, in a podcast interview or whatever, to just let go of all of that and to prepare and plan and practice so you can be free to be spontaneous. And those are the kinds of things that and that's why we do role play. We actually do the actual situations because you don't know how you're going to respond. Like, I can go through mentally all the time what I want to do on the mat, and I watch videos, and then you're actually on the mat and you've got somebody else's body up against yours, and it's a whole different thing. And the media is the same. It's like you can practice, and then the hot lights of the TV, or we're doing a countdown. Are you ready? Boom, the camera's on. There's people out there. And how do you respond now when you're asking me questions maybe that I wasn't prepared for?
Yeah. Uh,
That's the
let
practice.
me do a quick recap. Okay, so what you said, your framework in terms of working with people who are thinking about even media at all is what's your intention, right? How are you serving the audience, number one, and then what is the intended outcome that you want, financially, relationally, reputationally, and all these things for you, and then and what was the third? I can't remember.
What do you want your audience to do? How are you
That's
going
right.
to
That's right. The call to action. Like,
inspire them?
what is the call to action, and
Yeah.
then have all that intentionality in your head. Train, such that you can on the floor with lights on, throw away the plan and just be in flow. Is that a rough? Is that an accurate reflection of what you said?
Yes, and I do want to say, yes, you can be in the flow, but if you haven't done the practice, if you haven't done the 10,000 repetitions, um, what happens in our brain, and I know you're a scientist, is that when we get nervous and cortisol kicks in, it blocks our short-term memory. That's why you want it ingrained in mental and muscle memory. So whether you're on the Aikido floor doing physical repetitions, or you're in a role play situation where you've gone through, where I have shouted at you or put you on the spot or asked you crazy questions that we go through the worst case scenarios so you can be relaxed.
Mm,
And those can be personal questions, those can be professional questions, just anything to throw you off. And can you come back to center? And like you and I just did some breathing, so everything is about the breath, and not everything, but I mean, the breath is when we get thrown off center, to take the breath, to ground, to settle, to come back to center at all times, So it's not that we won't get thrown off, no matter how skilled we are. And the founder of Aikido said this, it's not that I don't get thrown off center, it's just I get back to center so fast you don't see me.
mm.
see it. And that's the eventual goal, right? Like sometimes, when you see people on TV and they're frozen or they've been shocked, right? And that's fine. Like if that happens, like if all of a sudden, like you're like stunned, you're like, what? You can, right? You can still, you have your moment of shock, you take a breath, you get back to center and you say what you came here to say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm curious. After working with thousands of people, be on TV, on the spotlight, I in my mind, personally, for me, it's not. I don't even want to go there. It's just not
You're
something
on a
that
podcast every day. Like you're on
huh?
a podcast you are there. You're on a podcast. You're there. You're there.
I know. So, yeah, we're gonna come back to that in a moment. But
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah.
wanted to ask you is this: what is the worst? I guess that the most intrusive questions or the most shocking thing that some reporter or some journalist would just say, and then what's the you know what? How did your client respond?
Yeah, I love that question because there've been so many, questions. I did have a client on Fox News at one point where it was a very I can't tell you what the situation was, but it was a very, controversial situation where some people had died. And for her, I had media train he was very skilled and we had worked for a couple of years. And, there was no warm up. She was just like, you were this person's mentor at one point. He's responsible for these people dying. How do you feel about that? Right? And so we had rehearsed a whole number of points about how one is responsible for oneself. And, so we had rehearsed those. So he was able to stay even with that. And she asked it really aggressively too.
So the tone was
The tone was
attacked.
very aggressive. It
Yeah,
jumped right in. Usually a host is going to warm you up, at least with the first question. Typically, even on controversial, they may not be as sharp. And,
hmm
and everybody's different. But we had already role played all of that worst case scenario. So we had done all the worst case scenarios for that particular situation because there was also legal implications. We needed to
yeah,
do things in a certain way. So we had run all of that by. Now, other situations when you asked me, what do I do? For each person, it's very individual because they have their own individual stuck points and personality triggers. And that's what we want to locate. Like, what trips you up? What throws you off? What kind of questions are
mm-hmm.
hard for you? So with each person, it's different, you know.
Yeah.
And so it could be something really personal. And typically, men hosts will be more aggressive and pointed and maybe like a Bill O'Reilly. I've trained people to be on Bill O'Reilly in 60 Minutes. So those
Mm,
are more pointed and energetically very cutting and direct.
mm.
With women, oftentimes the question will be more uh, invasive or
What does that mean?
invasive, it means more intrusive or personal. So I might say to you, so a question that I might say to you that would be completely inappropriate, like CK, um, how's your sex life this week? How many people have you slept with?
Oh, like Howard Stern type questions?
Yeah, yeah. And I had a client on Howard Stern who asked, I think he was asking her, what's your bra size? And
Yeah,
he was talking about, so this is about transitioning, so we talked about like, what's your bra size? And then I'm so happy you asked about that because
I
that's
see.
one of the biggest questions that a woman has in breast cancer is, how's my bra going to fit? And she was talking about like death and breast cancer. It just transitioned right into it. It's like, yeah, that's a big concern for me and other women. And so again, this is an Aikido technique. You're not resisting it. You're not going like, I'm not going to tell you about my bra size. It's
Yeah.
like, how can you go with it and transition to what you want to say that's important to the audience?
I so appreciate that. So as you're speaking, the parallel processing in my mind, the image in my mind it's really like a dojo training because you
Mhm.
just the whole idea is you train, but then during sparring and the actual fights, then you're able to basically take anything and do yes and. It's not like,
Yes,
no,
that's a
I'm gonna totally
beautiful
block
way.
you because then you
Mhm.
absorb everything. Rather, it's yes and then you use Aikido techniques to use the momentum and redirect it elsewhere. Because to me, that's grace in display, grace in motion. If I say no, I don't want to answer that, that's okay. But you kind of, the interview energy, which is you don't look as graceful,
Yeah,
especially on
yeah.
TV.
And that was another thing. I was so not graceful on the Aikido floor. I'm still not. And
I
that's
don't know. I mean, you're pretty graceful to me.
very sweet. I appreciate that. I'm going to take that compliment in. That's another thing that is very hard for many of us is to receive that compliment. And if you don't take that in and create that energetic circle, you're stopping all that good energy because I know you know this from science. I think it's 10, we have to hear 10 great things to counteract one negative one. And usually we let the negative one stab in our heart and stay, and we always remember it. But the compliment, like I'm going to remember this compliment. CK said, I was graceful, and see if I can expand that. Like, well, where else? Because there are other places in life where I am graceful. I am a graceful tennis player, you know. I am a graceful walker. You know what I am? I am graceful watering my plants around the house. So I want to like reinforce that goodness that you've just said too. So I would take what you say and see if I can multiply it. And um that's how we train ourselves and train our minds too, right? Like to really be aware of what's happening. And even me saying that I'm not graceful,
Yeah,
um, puts that out there, right?
totally.
I'm not perfect. I do it all the time myself, and it's about recalibrating, like we just did together.
So, perfect example. I'm sure your clients, especially if they're new to the whole idea of being in front of camera, I actually include myself totally in that realm still. I'm not comfortable speaking in camera, even though I do it a lot. And I'm more comfortable now than, let's say, a few years ago.
Yeah,
The question I have for you is people, especially high performers, right? The overachievers, they tend to be very, very critical of themselves. So how do you coach them such that they can pay attention to what they're doing right versus like, oh my God, I don't sound like Susan or CK or whoever they admire on media and say,
right.
yeah, look at that person. That person
Yeah,
is so good. I'm so not that. And therefore, I hate my voice. I hate the way I look. I have this weird twitch or whatever. Like, how do you
exactly.
make sure? How do you how do you gently guide them towards positive reinforcement rather than like, oh my God, this is not for me, I don't want to do this
Yeah.
ever.
Okay, so I had this client, very high performer, and she had given like one talk at her clinic, and I was preparing her for 1440. And we were talking and we were working in her, this was before COVID, working in her living room. I was showing her how to use her body, how to use the stage, how to interact with the audience. I mean, because she'd really never done this before. And this was after we had crafted the talk into 20 minutes, right? And she said to me when we were in her kitchen, oh my God, do you think I'm ever going to be any good at this? And I'm like, this is your talk number two. And I said, and this is fun. I mean, she was phenomenal. Of course, she was so gracious and gorgeous and fluent. And when she gave her talk at 1440, she said, oh my God, I could see that I was like the only one who was media trained there. And and she was it perfect? No, of course not. But when you know because she doesn't have the experience yet of even like knowing, but she was really energetically connected to the audience. Like you could see where they were connected with her, where they laughed, where she said things that were connective. And so when we watched that, I said, here's what you did. It's about pointing out, here's what you did right, and here's where you connected with the audience, and to start becoming aware of your own skills. So we always look at, what did you do right first? So this is after I let people criticize themselves because they have to. They're like, this way that, so
Oh,
usually
so you don't stop them, you just let
I
them
don't
go.
stop them. I
I
let
see.
them. You have to get it out. It's like, and sometimes that comes first. It's like, I need to say like all the horrible things that I did. I'm like, ah, fine, get it out. Let's talk about it, get it all out. And then I'm like, okay, now can you, if that has to come first, what did you do well and what do you want to keep? And then all those things that they said that they wanted to change that they didn't like about themselves, those are the things that we work on. And it's an iterative process. And it's a process that you can do obviously in front of your webcam if you're doing broadcast or podcast, but everything is video now, right? So turn on your webcam, people. Yeah. And start to see what happens. Like I'm a slow blinker. I can't do anything about that. Do I like it?
What? Wait, hold on.
I'm a slow blinker. Blink. Blink.
That's a thing. That's the thing you criticize yourself about. What?
Well, it's like, why am I blinking so slow? You know, but that's the way I blink. So I'm not going to worry about that. I can't change that.
Okay. Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? I have to focus on what I can change. My blink
Yeah.
pattern, unless you're rapidly blinking, like when you're nervous, like I have some clients who would frown or blink really fast. Yes, we're going to work on those things because what you do under pressure, we want to see what happens under pressure because
Mm.
oftentimes people are completely different when they're under pressure. And that's what we want to see. What's your default? What happens under pressure? Like you were talking about twitches or weirdo things that people do. They might smack or frown or whatever it is that they do. We want to see it and say, oh, this is what happens. This doesn't happen when you're relaxed, but this is what's happening when you're under pressure. Let's be aware of it. And then just that iterative process. So if we're like we are now, I'll just say frown. So you start to become aware of it, like frown. And then I'll also do the same when you're doing something well, I'll say, you just smiled appropriately. I feel really warm. I feel connected. Let's keep you smiling during that part of what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I have a question. Okay. Let's use the younger CK as an example.
Okay.
I remember the days when I was fresh in Toastmasters,
Uh-huh.
not even
You
media,
were doing it. Yeah.
just general people, right? Just totally nervous. And people would say, "Hey, you're not smiling. You look like a robot." So I would go like this because I just couldn't connect. So I knew it mechanically how to do it,
Right.
but subconsciously I just didn't relate to that. So how do you help them,
You
in addition to the
you get
mechanics of
feeling
doing
in your body because right now you're a really natural smiler, right? Like you smile naturally. So we want to say what makes you smile. You
Mhm.
know, petting a dog, like I love dogs, I love animals. It makes me super smile. So what can you get? I was working with the CEO of a national magazine, and he was a little wooden. He was very accomplished, a triathlete, and super accomplished in many areas. And he was kind of wooden. And I was there with his marketing person. And in conversation before we were actually turning on the camera, he had been talking about his daughter. And I think it was the youngest daughter, but one of his daughters, like really, he really was talking about her. And so I said,
His favorite. Yeah, his favorite. I got it.
his favorite, I didn't want to say that, but it was his favorite daughter.
Mm.
Um, it was his favorite daughter. And I said, think about your daughter and what you just were, the latest thing that you just did with her that you were so happy about. And then we turned on the camera.
Mm.
So he was in that natural state. And then the other thing is that you want your face, everything that you do say, are, and think to be in alignment from your words to your website, to your facial expression, to your body language. So if I'm talking about something happy, I love petting dogs, I naturally smile. You smile too because
Mhm.
you felt it from me. That's
Mhm.
what happens. If I'm talking about the mob that stormed the Capitol, I'm not going to be smiling because that's congruent with the information. So I think that if you're crafting a talk, you have places in it where that make you happy and that you smile so you can connect with the audience. So it's about connecting with yourself first and then saying those things that you connect with the audience. So if you're seeing people in the audience smiling about you, you're connecting together with that experience. And science wise, when we tell stories and we sync up, our brains sync together. So when we start to tell stories, you and I are we're already synced. That happens. So to already know that you're synced with people, I think is really helpful. You're not separate, you're not synced. And I remember one of my clients was Lee Glickstein, who created speaking circles. I don't know if you ever did a speaking circle. Oh, well, it's a speaking circle is where you don't prepare anything. You stand up and you speak.
Mm,
It's terrifying for most people, right? Because, oh, I'm not going to prepare anything. But you speak from your heart, but you also speak from spontaneity about anything in that moment. So it's enormously helpful for people to be and the people who are on the receiving end of it, you don't give any kind of approval or response. You just give that person complete acceptance. That's something that is so rare for us. So sometimes people just cry,
mm.
like just feeling that. And you also have the opportunity not to say anything. And I've done this with groups, like stand for 1 minute. If you don't want to say anything, just stand. So uncomfortable. I'm like, you're just going to receive the audience's acceptance.
Mm.
1 minute is a very long time to receive acceptance. Oh,
That's
so the
right.
one thing that I
That's
wanted
right.
to say that Lee Glickstein had told me too, he had offered me, to go to some of his seminars. And I'm actually an introvert and I don't like
You
groups.
are?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm
Great. We have more in common.
what?
Fantastic.
You're an introvert?
Oh, big time.
I had no idea.
Oh my God. You don't even know.
So here we are, two introverts who are trained extroverts. We're trained on this, right? So it's not comfortable. I'm so nervous I mean, I had to run to the bathroom, right before. I always get really super nervous before any of these. Have I been doing this for like more than 20 years? Yes. I still get nervous? Yes. And to use that energy. But what I wanted to say about Lee Glickstein, to get back to that, is I wasn't going to take that seminar. It was like a 3 or 4 day seminar. And I thought, I'm terrified. And then I thought, my client is offering me his free training free in something that I'm really fascinated with. It would be um, not only ungracious, but again, it's stopping that energy of being gifted and given that I really had. I don't even want to use the word obligation, but it was necessary for myself to accept that, to keep that. If that's what I say I want and it comes to me and I say stop, then I'm not going to keep getting what I want, right? So I accepted. But one of the thing that he said to me, even though I was so terrified, is that if you're terrified of speaking in front of an audience, you're thinking of yourself as separate.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. How many of us can think of it like we're taught like, oh, we're all one and all of that. But in practice, it's not that easy.
No.
That's a practice too, to
Mhm.
say. And one of my mentors, Asara Lovejoy, yesterday in our group call was saying, there's only one thing that she didn't say there was only one thing to be concerned with, but I think that if there was one thing, this is something that I practice every day, and it is loving myself, loving others. Not easy at all, and I don't pretend that this is an easy task. I love
Loving myself
and loving others
in loving others. Gotcha.
and loving others. So
And loving
you
others.
know, um, um, what's his name? Charles Schultz said, "I love humanity. It's people I can't stand." In the Peanuts commercial, because we are people. We are all difficult, right? So we were practicing yesterday in our
I'm
group.
so glad you said that, by the way.
With that,
As I'm so glad you quoted uh
Peanuts.
Charles's quote. Yeah, the peanuts thing. And just a quick, I don't want to digress you too much, but I'm an INTJ by Myers-Briggs. So my friend always remind me like, hey, you INTJ people, you love humanity, but you really don't like individual humans. I'm like, yeah, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that.
There's some truth. It's not we as people are not easy to love. I mean, that is just a fact. I mean, especially if what's going on politically um, right now, how not to hate whoever is on the opposite of what we believe, right? That is we can all practice on that every single day, right? So what she was saying is that um, I forgot the exact phrase, but it was like, "Can I only have love in my heart?"
Mm,
If we come from that place, um, it circumvents, "What does someone think of me?" Because we're loving someone else first. And again, that is a practice because somebody, bumps my cart in the grocery line or tries to butt in front of me. I'm pissed. First reaction, I might be pissed. Like, who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. And then can I have a polite response? Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I'm not sure that you saw me in line. Oh, I saw you. I thought I was, whatever that exchange might be, right? That comes in. The first reaction might be, who do you think you are?
right.
And to just notice that about yourself. So that's a practice that I do every day. Okay, that might be my first response, and then I settle down and say, okay, what can be, take a breath, what's my second choice response, can I respond to this in a different way, that's loving or more loving, like if you can't quite get to loving,
Yeah.
it could be a little more loving. Yeah.
I mean, what you share is so true. However, I'm curious to know how you introduce these type of practices to your clients because they came to you for media training. That's what they want, right? And
Yeah.
ultimately, in my mind, I'm total agreement with you. How do you make sure that you step into a receptive, accepting audience, first cultivating your self-love? So therefore, you're not separate from your audience.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
daily practice. Is it
But how
moment?
do you right, how do you teach them
Okay, so
that's
here,
ultimately what they need, not
okay,
the
here, yeah.
mechanical stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So this wasn't a client of mine, but this was a call for a potential client that just happened the other day. She's a Black woman in business in an all white world. And she was very natural with me and her voice and everything. And I'm like, well, I'm not hearing what you're saying about being uncomfortable. And she said, oh, it's in front of like when I'm in an audience and all I'm in front of the white gaze. It's an all white gaze, and I'm a Black woman, and I get flustered. And I'm like, okay, I can totally understand that. I totally empathize that. And you're thinking about what are people thinking of you? So that's the first thing that we need to reverse is not be thinking about what somebody else is thinking of you, but rather, what did I come here to give and stay focused on that? And again, CK, this is a process, like, because, but you need to stand in front of those 100 white people, maybe 10 at first or other people first to get what does it feel like to have 100 white gazes on me as a Black woman and still be able to say what I came here to say. It's not something that necessarily is going to flip overnight, but it is a practice. How many times can I? And it is a moment by moment practice. There you are talking. Oh, I'm self conscious. I just had this experience yesterday. I'm going to finish with her and then I'll tell you about my experience. But so if you're thinking, if you go in there and you say, I have these points that I want to cover that are really important, that I want to connect to my audience, and this is what I want to give. And then in the middle of it, you're thinking, oh my God, 100 people are staring at me. And I wonder if my stockings are, something in my boobs coming out of my, whatever, whether it's physical or it's like they're hating me, they're not getting it. You take your breath. So it's all about breathing and then, a practice. So with my clients, I train them, okay, stop, breathe, ground. Think about your feet, in the going deep, deep, deep into the earth, recenter yourself. It just takes a second, but it is a practice. And then come back to your purpose. What are you here to speak about, to give, and get back on track? So
Mm,
that is the practice. And I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, right? But that is the practice of doing that over and over and over again. And
mm,
that's
mm,
what
mm.
considered the practice. So just yesterday, I was giving a webinar, and I could tell right away it wasn't landing because I had created it for consumers and I was talking to PR professionals. And I just said in the middle of the thing,
So
I'm like,
hold on. So topically, you intellectually knew that. How do you what are they doing such that you receive, okay, whatever I'm saying, it's not landing?
for them, you mean for the webinar that I just did?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it was a webinar, so I could only see a couple of people. It was Zoom or whatever, so I could only see a couple of people. It wasn't, they weren't, it was a feeling. I
Mm,
knew because I was a publicist before this, and I was speaking to publicists. And as I was going through my material, which we had talked about ahead of time, I just realized like this is not granular enough
mm, mm, mm,
for
mm,
them.
mm, mm,
So I did two things. I said, I'm going to skip ahead a number of these slides. Like I had to skip through a whole bunch of slides because I'm like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And
mm,
I said, and then I said, I have another document. I don't have it up. I'll need to, when you're asking questions, I'm going to pull it up that I think would be more appropriate for you, that
mm,
is more granular. And then, but I did the best I could because I kind of had to follow my slides because it was a
mm,
slide presentation, but it wasn't fun. And I was terribly uncomfortable. And I started thinking, oh my God, I'm so not delivering on my promise.
mm,
And I had that moment of like that sinking feeling and going like, and I'm embarrassing myself in front of my PR professionals, and then I had to, and then there was somebody in the audience that I knew that was my peer. And I'm like, and now I'm shaming myself in front of her.
mm,
And then I thought, back to center. What am I here to do? I got to give these people value and give what I promised. So I have to figure that out, how to do that on the spot. And I said, let's jump to Q&A. I'm like, here's what I have. I go, let me answer your questions because, and then we went to Q&A and I got into my groove because it was like I could spontaneously, answer those questions and really be very specific in terms of helping them. But like half an hour, not good.
yeah.
So what I do in review is, and then I wrote them a note, the people who invited me saying like, oh God, acknowledging it, like this is what happened. I'm really sorry. And I hope I redeemed on the second half. And they said, yeah, you did. I got the email back this morning. I was
Well, thank you for using yourself as a example of what's it like to be in the dojo, right?
like, yeah,
And in real time, how you actually you lost control for a moment, but you're able to regain control, regain composure, regain sovereignty, and then really serve your highest good and deliver in a, although a different format, a different mechanism to serve the people that were on the webinar.
yeah,
Yeah. I think what you share for anyone listening who's even thinking about any kind of media exposure, um, this is live, right? Because I would assert what you just share is one of the nightmare scenarios that they never want to step into.
I agree. I didn't think I was stepping into it. I was horrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, it would have been way easier had I not had my slides too, because I was sort of married to the slides.
Mm,
And so to me, I mean, it's very easy for me to be spontaneous. I actually prefer that to a structured talk.
yeah.
But most people don't. Most people prefer the structured talk. But either way, it doesn't matter, right? So it would have been easier for me had I not had to sort of manage those slides too. I could have just managed myself and the information on the spot. But it's also about asking what you want, And I do want to share one other thing that happened to me. It was with Marsha Weeder, who's the
Hmm.
dream coach. Yeah. So I went to one of her seminars. She had invited me as her guest, and I had wanted to meet one of my clients who was attending that seminar. So I wanted to meet had I met Marsha before? No, I hadn't met her before. We'd just been on the phone. And then when we were there, Marsha said to me, hey, do you want to come up and talk for 15 minutes? And I said, sure. Shit. That's what I
What an opportunity.
sure. Oh shit. Because there's hundreds of people. I don't have anything prepared. And I go running into the bathroom because I'm freaking out. Because I have so much to say, I don't even know where to begin. And my friend, my client, who I already adored, came in. She's like, "Are you all right?" I go, "Yes, you need to leave me alone." I said, "I need to just I was just breathing. I was just like meditating on the toilet. That's what I'm doing. I'm meditating on the toilet, going like, I need to focus. I need to." And then I thought, you know what? I don't really want to stand up there and just talk for 15 minutes. I love in conversation. And so I went out to Marsha and I said, can we do this in an interview format? can you just, we're both sitting on these stools on the stage. Can you just ask me anything we want? And, I mean, she's a great PR person. She knows what to ask. I said, I said, you can ask me this, this, and this, or anything you want. And that's what we did.
Mm.
So it's also about when you have those freak out moments, you don't have to do what the other person's asking you. You can make a suggestion and say, what about this? To something that you're comfortable with, because I'm completely comfortable with that format.
Yeah.
I was
Actually,
not comfortable trying to figure out of everything I know, how am I going to craft this into 15 minutes?
yeah. Uh, it reminds me of how Richard Branson rarely gives a solo speech. He's always being interviewed by
Oh,
someone.
him. I hate I just it's not my thing. I don't like it. I'm bored with myself. And to give it over and over again, if I've given it 3 times, I'm like, "Oh, brother." I'm just it's just I like to do things differently every single time. And that's not conducive to like paid speakers who give like the same speech every time. And it's just not my thing. If it's your thing, that's great.
Yeah.
I have one client who's a speaker. I don't know how much she gets paid for now. It was $20,000 a talk at that time. And he gave that speech like 345 days a year.
Wow.
The same one,
Wow.
$3,000 a pop.
That's really interesting. I guess we can go down that rabbit hole. It reminds me of a stand-up comedian, how they just go on the road and just craft their talk. And once they have enough material, then they will monetize it by selling it to Netflix by doing a Netflix special.
Which I love. I love those Netflix.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy, just in general. But I wonder if there's a way to have similar model for speakers. But that's probably not for a conversation here. I'm curious if you have any thoughts there at all.
I think there's two types of speakers. I really think that there's the type of speaker that's my client that has it everything perfectly timed. Jerry Seinfeld does this too. I heard you reference him in one of your other podcasts.
Oh, nice. Thank you. I appreciate
Seinfeld crafts everything down to the second. So he has honed his craft in front of the audience and knows exactly when they're going to laugh and where to pause. So there's a science and a beauty in that, you know, to have something down so much where you can predict people's behavior. That's really interesting. And my client obviously had that too, because he had certain things that he was very physical acting out on the stage. Um, then there was one of my other clients who was a Sufi master and a doctor, a medical doctor. And we were talking, it was in my soundbite course. And he kept asking me over and over, Susan, what am I going to say exactly in my talk? That his university was in danger of becoming unfunded. And so
it.
he needed money now. So I said, you are a Sufi master and
Mm,
you know how to read energy and you know how to read people. So yes, you craft your talk and then read the audience. So this is the other way. Craft your talk and know when to divert from your talk based on what's going on with the audience and how you can read the audience. If you're not a reader of the audience, then that's not for you. Give your time, talk, and see where people respond and be scientific about it. So for him, he spoke and he said, Susan, there was a moment where I just needed to shift everything I meant to talk about. And I started talking about something different. And at the end of my talk, a person came up and wrote a check for me, handed it to me for $100,000
mm.
so I could keep my university. And then a second person came up and wrote me a second check for another $100,000.
Wow.
Yes,
Beautiful.
it's
Thank you for sharing that.
it's beautiful because both ways work. There's not one right way for you. Experiment, and it may be a combo.
Yeah. So on this podcast, we use the yin yang sign to illustrate the point that we're making a lot.
Mhm.
So let me share this with you for the audience listening and use what you share as an example. The
Mhm.
yang way is very directed, intentional, scientific. The yin way is more of an inflow. And I think also what you share beautifully is he already is a master in his own domain. So he's not just trying to remember things that he learned, last weekend. So that also makes it a lot easier, and similar to your talk as well, right? You already know the material. You just needed to reshuffle in a way to best serve the audience. Is that
Yeah.
an accurate
Mhm.
reflection?
Yes, yes, yes. I knew that material very well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to shift gear a little bit. And I want to also use this as a teaching moment for others. How did you refine on who is it that you want to help? And how did you find that message that you wanted to devote your life towards? Or you can use yourself as an example, or you can use your clients as an example. How did you help them find who their avatar, like who they want to serve? And how do you help them find that message that that it's theirs, it's their
Yeah,
soul message that
yeah.
they share with the world?
Yeah, so, how I did that for myself was that, when I was writing Sell Yourself Without Selling Your Soul, I had a very young intern who, was helping edit the book, so he didn't know what he could or couldn't do in my book. And so when I was writing Sell Yourself Without Selling Your Soul, my first editor, who was a woman, said, "Hey, you know what? You're not writing a lifestyle book. You're writing a book on PR." And I said, "I beg to differ with you. I am writing a lifestyle book. I am writing about how you do PR is how you are and how you act in your life. It is a continuous stream." Thankfully, she left, the one who objected to my book, and I got to work with the kid who didn't know what he couldn't ask for. So I got to write the book that I wanted. And what I wanted, and people up on Amazon, one of my favorite interviews was a woman magazine editor said, "This book has helped me raise my children.
Mm,
This is the best parenting book I've ever read." And I'm
mm,
like, hallelujah. I said, mission accomplished. Because I wrote Sell Yourself Without Selling Your Soul to and this was this was right before 9/11, so I think it was 2010, maybe earlier. I think it was actually earlier. um and I wrote the book so it has no sales, sex, war, or sports jargon in it, or aggressive jargon, because how we speak is how we think is how we are. And that really wasn't that much of a concept at that point. And the social entrepreneurship thing didn't even exist. But HarperCollins asked me, they wanted to write my own catalog copy, and I wrote in there, Susan Harrow is a leader in the conscious business movement. There was no such thing, and they printed it.
mm,
And I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know they were going to like print my thing word for word. And then Publishers Weekly repeated it.
mm.
you know so how powerful words are. What I wanted to do, my niche was people who were conscious businesses when that was not a word. It was people who are out in the world doing amazing things, who actually have the ability to affect change, but they affect that change by themselves, by embodying it. My favorite saying from Gandhi is, you are the message, that you are the message. So that's why I say everything you do, say, are, and think needs to be in complete alignment before you offer, because it's working on yourself. I've heard your podcast. It's like when people say they want to change the world, I'm thinking, well, are they willing to change themselves? Because that's how you change the world.
But
Yeah.
okay, so that's what you have honed in on. I
Yeah.
was my question was, how did you land there? Was it more of an intuitive thing? Was it more an iterative practice? Was it more just, you know, I I don't know why, but I'm meant to serve these people? How did you end up there?
Well, I think it's the way I was raised. My dad was an orphan, and someone put him through Cornell.
Mm,
People were kind to him, and we always had we I grew up in Palo Alto and next to Stanford University, and every Thanksgiving, we had international students come and spend Thanksgiving with us because they didn't have anywhere to go.
mm.
Um,
I was one of those international students.
we would have had you over to our house.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and just enjoyed, family time with strangers.
Mhm.
We had this huge table in the house. Steve Jobs bought the house next door to us. We had this table which actually sat, I mean, it was you could seat 30 people. And
Mm.
we had 30 people at the table, so it was really fun. So I think it was just that my parents have always, um we're all like that. My brother's a musician, and my other brother has a business in Hawaii of, security alarms, and he is a philanthropist. He goes to Nepal and the Philippines and rebuilds, devastation. My, brother, but I don't know, we were just raised, all I can say is we were raised that way, so it was, like, in my blood. It was never really, I don't think it was uh it was an evolution versus a,
Mm.
I think that's the way. And then I wanted to address, so how do I, the other second part of the question was about my clients. You asked me
How
how
you help them find
how
the
do I
you
find that?
wanna serve. Yeah.
Okay, it's very organic because, media training is a lot like, improvisational jazz or improvising. So it's not, everyone. So I listen to the way that someone speaks naturally. I take them through a process of questioning. I listen to the way that they speak naturally, and then I start to pluck out the jewels and point them out. But what I know, and now neuroscience points this up, because when someone is a jazz musician, when they go into the riff or the improvisation, it's a different part of the brain. It's not the conscious part of the brain. And maybe then we can lead into the one command from here, like doing that process together.
That's good.
Might be a perfect point. So, they're in a place of not thinking, and it's a different part of the brain, and it just goes. We all have that ability, and I've noticed with everyone that I work with, when they're just relaxed and talking to me, their stories come out almost perfect.
Mm.
And so what we're just doing is like shaping the story. And yes, there are formats that I show them, that like these are successful formats that other people have used. If your format fits into that naturally, I'm going to show you that process.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'm going to reverse engineer it for you, so you know how you've told a story successfully naturally, so you can do it again. So the process starts to become, more conscious, so you can repeat it, because you do need to be able to repeat it, because I want to work myself out of a job. If you know how to do this, and here's what happens, you may be on a media appearance or a podcast and you get thrown a loop. You need to know how to create your own messages and sound bites on the spot.
Mhm.
And if you have certain formats, you can sort of wrangle it in. You can wrangle it in. If you don't know anything and it's like wide open, that's much harder to pull things in, if rather than having formats, rather than, a song structure, and therefore you might know five of them and you can pull that out on the spot. Yeah, you're smiling about that. So you know about that. So neuroscience proves now that when we're relaxed and we drop down, that's when things just flow. Right? And so essentially we want to get back to that flow state. And that's relaxation. That's not being self-conscious, not thinking about yourself. So that's the practice, is getting back to our naturalness. And one of my clients said to me, I think it was in a class, she says, "Susan, you're telling us to be ourselves, but we need to practice at it." And I said, "Yeah, actually you do. You do need to practice being yourself, because there's so much coming at us that throws us off ourself, and that is coming back to our quote unquote best self in the moment, right? Not the snappy self, or the it's the polished self.
The construct itself, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mm.
um to be able to be relaxed enough to be in that state so things flow perfectly, which they will.
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
sense to you?
Yeah, for sure. Did you wanna to do the one command before I ask my follow-up?
Yeah. So one of the things where, okay, so everybody has issues, myself included, CK. We all have our own.
We're all perfectly imperfect human
Yeah,
beings.
we are.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Suzuki Roshi says you're perfect as you are, and there's always room for improvement.
Mhm.
So one of the things that happens with all of my clients is they have certain personality triggers, stuck points, patterns, programs, beliefs that are holding them back. No matter what the level is, right? Like millionaires, spiritually, the Sufi master. I mean, he's a Sufi master. He was, at the UN. He's negotiating peace treaties. We all have our issues. It doesn't matter how high a level you are up. politically, spiritually, intellectually. Um, so I started getting trained in the one command because I love speed and I like to have things shift really quickly. And I wanted a way, just like that's why I did Aikido, so I could get things more embodied in media training. I wanted to be able to move my clients faster, forward faster, and so they could get what they wanted with media. So I started training with Asara Lovejoy in the One Command, both one-on-one and in a group to get certified. So the One Command has helped millionaires, billionaires, heads of state, and people, entrepreneurs like you and me, shift their patterns, programs, beliefs, um, instantly on the spot. Sometimes it takes longer because there are layers and layers, but this is a process that is sort of the missing link to self-help because it's not outside yourself, it's inside yourself. It's not manifesting, which is outside. It's about you tapping into your greater self and the availability of what already is for you. So that's a quick explanation of it. And the results are that, people go from 10 million to 100 million, or from 1,000 to 10,000, or talking about, that. Or like when I was working with Asara, I'm allergic to gluten, and we cleared that.
Hmm.
Like
Interesting.
no naturopath, nobody had, they were like, we can clear you of everything, but not gluten.
Wow.
Working with that. Yeah, and I'm happy to share more examples of what I've done with my clients too, because I'm starting to work with my clients on this. It's
Mm.
new for me, so I'm not an expert in it yet, but I'm happy to share what I know. So the great thing that you need to know is that this is a very simple process that can shift your beliefs, patterns, programs in the moment, and then you watch what arises so you know what to work on next. Are there boots on the ground? Meaning, do you have to then do things physically, right? Like if you have a mindset and you've always had a poor relationship with your mother, is this just going to like shift that? Well, that could take a few layers, right? To be able to do that, but it's starting to be in that awareness. So I just wanted to be clear about that people go, $1 million isn't going to be plopped on your doorstep if you've only.
Totally. It's so to illustrate what you're articulating here, what Susan is saying is it will shift immediately the subjective reality, but the
Yes.
objective reality is still gonna take time. You're gonna still have that circumstances, challenges, whatever. But over time, giving this new shifted subjective reality, you may look at this challenge or problems newly, and new solutions will come arise. Is that an accurate
Yeah,
reflection?
and some things do happen instantly, and some things happen a month, 3 month, a year later, right?
Totally.
Like, so there is no sort of space time. It is now.
Yeah.
So I'll go through the steps and then I'll lead you through them. So you just listen to the steps first so you know where we're going, and then we'll go into them, and then you just do it with me. And CK, you and I can actually do this together, and I'll share with you how as soon as I tell the steps. So the first step is to ground. So what we'll do is we'll put our feet on the floor. And if you're laying down, that's fine. It doesn't matter where you are. It's about rooting yourself in the earth. That's number one. Number two is to align in your heart. Number three is to go into theta, and we do that by just rolling our eyes up. Our eyes will be closed, but we roll them up to the, like where you're looking out your forehead or looking out the top of your head. That's mechanically going to put you into theta, which is a different state than we are normally, which is beta. And that's going to open your mind to, if you're calling like subjective reality, that is going to be opening your mind to what's the closest to the dream state. So you get out of your conscious thinking and into the possibility of all that is. And what this process does is it actually changes your neurology, your biology, and your DNA. So, so that can all happen simultaneously. So just by doing this process, you're already in a different state of mind. We phrase a command, which is, I think we're on number 4 or number 5. We phrase a command and the word is, I don't know how. What that does is it automatically takes you out of your linear thinking, and it also takes away your objections about like how things can't happen. And so it puts us into an open frame of mind. And what one of my friends said that I think is so beautiful is he said it kind of connects you to the mystery of what is. Because if you don't have something, and you try to name it, which is manifestation. And I love Abraham Hicks and I love all of that stuff. So if that's working for you, that's great. I'm just explaining the difference. So when you try to name something that you've never had before and never had the experience of it, how do you know how to get it? So saying, I don't know how, opens up the possibilities for a new thought, a new way, a new experience to come in because it hasn't happened to you before. It hasn't happened in as big a way as you like. And then so I don't know how, and then we say whatever that is that we don't know how to do, and that it's what we want. It's what we want to change, remove, or improve. That's what we're going to name first, and then we're going to shift that. And then the last part is to say, um, so I don't know how I relax in front of media every time I do it, no matter what medium it is, and I'm talking to a person. I only know that I do now, and I am grateful and fulfilled. So the last part is being grateful and fulfilled, having
Mm.
gratitude for the process. So the way I thought we could do it together, CK, is
Mhm.
let's choose something. If you would like to choose something that you specifically would like to change, remove, or improve, and we can combine it with maybe people who want to do media or more speaking or more Zoom calls because that's up right now. We can integrate that in. But if you have a particular
Yeah, sure. Let's
share,
so let me just clarify something. I don't know how, and it's something that I wanted to shift, not
yes, and that
necessarily a
part, the
goal
other
per
hard
se.
part is the positive. So let's imagine I want to shift my nervousness. I when I say I don't know how I'm relaxed and grateful and feel comfortable on camera. So
Got
we're
it.
shifting to the positive. So we're shifting from
Got it.
the
Got it.
negative, the nervous, the positive. So we're only saying the positive when we say the command. And
Sure, no
the thing is,
problem.
I just wanna say one more thing about the command. You only do a command once because it is so. It has shifted in the quantum field.
Got it.
So if you
Okay.
yes, there might be deeper ways that we do that, like, you can do it for I did it specifically for our interview today. Can I
Mm,
be relaxing and in the flow with CK today because this is like a new experience.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think for me would be to be more playful.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Alright, great. So, close your eyes. And so what I wanna say is let's go back and forth. So I'll say a command, you say a command, I'll say a command, you say a command. So I'll start, and then you just jump in with whatever playful, response you want to say, or if it's not playful, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. It's just and we'll go back and forth. So I say something, you say something, and then I'll just bring us to a natural conclusion and take
Okay.
it to the side.
I'm just taking all the instruction in, so I'll do my best.
Yeah, and I'll cue you.
Yes,
You're not
thank
saying
you.
anything, I'll go, "CK, would you like to say something?" And if you don't, if you go, "No, I have nothing to say," that's fine, and I'll just keep going. So feel
Yeah,
free, if you don't have anything to say or if nothing pops up in the moment, just let me know, and I'll just
sure.
keep going. Yeah. So thank you for being brave and doing this because CK's never done this with me before.
No, no, this is
Yeah.
new. Well, I mean, this is what Noble Warrior is all about, like, you got some new ways to hack consciousness? Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And what people have said about this that I really love, and we'll see how all of you feel, um, yeah, that it feels really easy and good, and there's no resistance to it. Because my sweetie who has done everything and has been meditating forever, he said, "This is the only process I've never had any resistance to," which I thought was
Mm,
interesting. Yeah.
mm.
Well, we'll see, but you
Beautiful,
have your own experience. Whatever you have is fine.
beautiful. Let's do it.
So close your eyes.
Mhm.
You can rest your feet on the floor if you're lying down. Just lie down and relax and feel the bed or the couch or whatever. If you're in a chair, feel the back of it. You can rest your hands either open or in a mudra if you like this, or you can have your just palms open on your knees or on the sides of a chair, whatever's most comfortable for you. Take a deep breath in, let it out. Deep breath in through your nose. You can let it out through your nose or your mouth. Feel your feet on the floor or wherever you are. And imagine that your feet are roots going deep, deep, deep into the earth. You can also imagine that they're jewels, that they're rubies or diamonds or gems or crystals that go deep, deep, deep into the earth. So they're going deep, 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 all the way to the center of the earth. And we're connecting with our ancestors, with all of the experience that they've had before us that can help us. You're connecting with the magna, with earth, with all of the creatures that are in that ground. And at the same time, imagine a beautiful beam of light coming down through the top of your head, through the crown of your head, all the way through your body, all the way through your solar plexus, all the way deep, deep, deep into the earth. So you're connected with both the heavens and the earth and all that is possible. Then begin to draw that energy, that deep, supportive earth energy up through your feet, through your calves, through your knees, through your thighs, up to your solar plexus, up to your heart. And when you reach your heart, we're just going to align with your intention. For CK, it's to be more playful. For you, if it's to be more relaxed on video, on Zoom, to connect with people deeply, to have a wonderful experience, to begin to have more love in your heart, to see the good in people, to feel comfortable within your own skin, to have the experience of having a good and relaxed and flow experience, whatever that is for you, align that in your heart. And then take a deep breath in and pull that energy from your heart all the way up through your forehead and hold it. So hold right at the forehead your breath, hold, 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 and then let it out. Light before you, light behind you, light above you, light below you, light to the right of you, light to the left of you, light inside of you, light, light, light. You are a body of light. You are filled with light. Then gently roll your eyes up into your head as if you're looking into your forehead. This is what's going to take us into theta. And then put your conscious mind up through your head. Take a trip up through your forehead, up through your head, up through the ceiling, up, 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 past the stars, up, 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 past the galaxies, up, 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 past the Milky Way, up, 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 past Saturn and Jupiter and all the planets, up, 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 past all the galaxies and the universes and anything. And you're going to come to a velvety black a mist, and then you're going to pop up through that mist into the white luminosity of all that is. And this is where the pure potential is. You can do anything and be anything and feel anything. And your greatest self, you have access to that. And you have access to the powerful consciousness of all the beings and people and anything that came before us. I don't know how. I feel more playful and alive and exhilarated. I only know that I do now, and I am grateful and fulfilled. And then, CK, you can add in something that you would like as well.
With the same command, I don't know how.
I don't know how, and then it's just a variation of being playful or anything that pops into your mind.
Yeah, to be totally relaxed doing our podcast so my guests can co-create beautiful content to inspire all of my listeners.
Great. I don't know how I inspire people with just who I am, with my words, with my playfulness, with my beingness. I only know that I connect to people deeply and they connect back to me. And that brings me joy and it brings me more of everything I want. I only know that it is so now and I'm grateful and fulfilled. If you want to add in another, you can. And you can say, I don't know how, and then say a command that you wish.
I don't know how to be totally present and just enjoy the moment with all of my guests to inspire everyone who is hungry for what we're co-creating, what we have collected over the years.
Hmm. I don't know how I attract and the people that need to hear my message, CK's message, come and find him and find me and find what they need. I only know that those people find us and find that wonderful exploration and feel enlivened by it and feel just as present and as relaxed as CK. I only know that I do now and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how. I open my mind to new experiences, to the things that I want, the things that I don't yet have that I may not even know that are going to make me feel better and enrich my life. I only know that I do now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how. I am so comfortable doing media and getting my message out into the world that people really need to hear, to help more people, to connect with people, to give them what I came on this earth to give. I only know that I do now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how. I am more playful and more relaxed and just really allow any experience to come in and follow that where it might lead me, that I get the right experiences for the things that I need for the next steps and wherever I want to go. I only know that I do now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how I can be exactly who I am, that I can be relaxed in who I am, and that people resonate and respond to that. I only know that I am now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how I can do Zoom and video and podcast and media and Facebook Live and Instagram and be myself and get my message out there and have the kind of clients and customers and sales that I want. I only know that I do now, and I am grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how I can bring in the exact amount of money and maybe actually 3 times more money that I need to help my family and help others and be able to give enough away to feel comfortable. I only know that I do now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. I don't know how I can find exactly what I need to do on this earth at this time to be of maximum good in the world. I only know that I do now, and I'm grateful and fulfilled. And then take a breath and even expand more deeply into whatever that is, just that you feel the expansion of all the molecules of your body. And then we're going to unwind any doubts, any fears, anything that's holding us back. Unwind any kind of experiences that have happened before us. Unwind, and then rewind with this new experience, this relaxation, this sense of fun, this excitement in the future that anything is possible. Rewind. And this is where your DNA is actually changing. So if there's images and thoughts and feelings that are coming in, just notice them now, make note of them later. This is part of your guidance. Just let all of that come in and then take another breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room.
Amazing.
What did you notice? Yeah, what did you notice for you?
Uh, that fee up light. Number one, just it's there. It's beautiful to always be in that space. And also, I noticed how soothing your voice is.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those voices that you can just listen to for hours and on. So
I
it's a
appreciate that. Thank you for that.
resonance. So in case you don't have a podcast yet, in case you don't have any kind of sound healing offering yet, I highly recommend it.
I hope this is a sound healing for all of you. I hadn't
It's
thought of
true.
a place like
Yeah,
that. I
it's
love that.
very, very relaxing. It's very relaxing.
Love that. Thank
My nervous system really liked it. I like it. You
you.
know, brings me to a space. What did you notice?
Yeah, so I noticed at first I had a little bit of self-consciousness because I've never done this before, and I really needed to focus and drop in so I could relax enough to just sort of feel because it's all spontaneous. Like I did this with a friend, and he's like, "Well, how did you know? How did you say all those things? Have you done this times?" And no, it was something completely different for him. And I said, no, I was just trying to sense what it was that you needed. And so I can't do that in my conscious mind. So I don't know if you heard, things that you needed to hear or what it was just the sound that it was, but that's my intention that I'm guided to just say what it is but you can't, it's hard to do if you're nervous about it.
Yeah, it
So
was
I had to
it
just
was
take my own breath. Yeah.
it was very beautiful. I really, really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm happy to have that experience with you.
So I want to segue to hmm, something tactical
Yeah.
about.
Let me just say this really quick. So this is something that you can do every day, 5 minutes or 1 minute or whatever. I did it on a whole bunch. You can do it on one. So you can go through this process and you can actually do it really fast. I mean, we did it slowly, but you can do it. You can actually probably do a 1 minute version
Hmm.
for yourself. So I just want to say this is something that you could do on any topic and you can choose one topic. I just went on a roll for a whole bunch of them. It's called stacking. Um, so if there's one specific thing that you want to, like I did it on our podcast, but I also did it on a whole bunch of other things too that I'm wanting
Mm-hmm.
today. And one of those is to get more work done. I have a lot of things I'm doing, rebranding. I have so much on my plate. I'm in a coaching course with Samantha Hartley, who you know. I mean, it's just like, it's just so many things that I have on my plate. And what I was asking for too is to whatever work or whatever I'm doing, can I be in that state where I can have maximum effectiveness, efficientness, and beauty in that state. So that was one thing that I commanded for. Two, for all of my day to day, but I also do it for specific things that I need to accomplish. So I can condense time when I want to and expand time. So if you're asking for something tactile, and I know you haven't asked for this, but I have a practice that condenses time and expands time. Because there's times when we want time to expand, when we're with our friends, when we're with our lovers, whatever, when we're having a great time, we don't want it to end. So how can we stretch that?
Mm.
And
Well, I
then
mean, since you opened that loop,
yeah,
can you go into that? How do you
yeah,
expand time? How do you multiply time? How
yeah.
do you
So
stretch time?
yeah, so part of that is getting spaciousness in your body and in your mind. Like, how do you hear those messages that you need to hear? I was watching a class with RuPaul, and he said, if you do nothing,
Masterclass?
right? He's fabulous.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah, he by the way, just a quick interjection. He was an accidental teacher I never thought I would like. I never ever thought
like,
I would like RuPaul, but when I watch his masterclass, like,
that's
this
what I
guy is
did.
the real deal.
Yeah,
I really like him.
totally.
Mhm,
Now he was right there throughout his class, was he not? Like, talk about presence.
mhm,
He here, right there. And that is an embodiment. And that's what we're going for, an embodiment of your values,
mhm.
embodiment of who you are, not who you say you are. Don't tell me who you are. Blah. Like,
Yeah, there wasn't any kind of posturing. He was just,
no.
he actually did whatever work he needed to do to let go of all that. He was just there and giving his truth. And if you like it, fantastic. Try it
Yeah.
on. If you don't like it, fantastic. Hey, good luck to
Yeah.
you. So that's his
And the
value.
other thing that I really noticed about him is like, oh my gosh, how many things he's done to get to where he is.
Mhm,
I was like, when people say, I want to be a media star, I want to be on TV. Oh, you are not on TV. It is the 10,000 iterative times, and it's not just doing something 10,000 times. It's doing it and an iteration every single time that you do it. So it's the 10,000 hours, and then it's also the progression of practice all the time. Like how many times he was on the stage, how many times, how afraid he was on the stage and nervous and not knowing whether he was in the right direction or whatever. So back to the time and what RuPaul said is moments of stillness. So one practice that you can do, that anybody can do, is do 1 minute an hour of breathing and centering and stilling. Because sometimes people have a really hard time. I'm very active. I don't know if you are too. I don't have a really easy time sitting. I do a lot of my meditative work and my prayers and my thinking and my expressing while I walk. I have a
mm,
notebook and I have my iPhone. So sometimes I record into my iPhone or record into notes. Sometimes
mhm,
I write it down, whatever medium seems to work for me. But I do meditations, prayers while I'm moving a lot of times. But I also sit in stillness every day. I do the one command and then I sit in meditation, which is not easy for me.
mm,
Because what I love about the one command is I keep a notebook right by my because I have
mhm,
tons of ideas, and I sometimes pretend that that counts as my meditation. It doesn't. It doesn't. Meditation is different. So I have the one command and then I go into meditation for the stillness. And then if my mind is really busy, I write those things down so then I can continue to clear. But that stillness is where the answers come. Whether it's in the shower, whether it's running, it doesn't matter what the practice is for you. It doesn't have to necessarily be meditation or stillness, but something that stills your mind. So with
Yeah.
all that, where the noise is where you're not listening to the outside world, you're just listening to your own inside world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I so appreciate that mental model, Susan. This I'll share one what I do, and then I'll segue to the question I wanted to ask you. Okay. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about how do you actually tap in, penetrate the constructive self, the stories, the illusions, all that stuff, to tap into that wholeness, the capital S self, the source, the higher self, whatever you call it, like that place of stillness, and that is the source of new ideas, messages, downloads, intuition, whatever you call it. That's what we talk about on the podcast a lot. So any of these
yeah,
practices, one command or ayahuasca journeys or
yeah,
meditation or yoga or boxing or Spartan race or cold bath or breath work, any of these are just different paths as a way to strip away these layers of
yeah.
constructive belief and then really get us closer to that capital S self. So
The what?
that's what we talk about.
Oh,
Capital S self,
oh, capital S. I thought you said capitalist. I go, I didn't know we were going for the capitalist self. That's cool,
capital
right?
S self.
Capital S self.
One thing I need to be better at is the enunciation as an immigrant. So there you go. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I have a lot of practices. So I do the one command. I do meditation. I have a walking practice. I haven't been doing Aikido. I got injured in Aikido, so I actually haven't done it in a couple of years. However, I'm always practicing Aikido. Um, and I am doing some sword work on my deck with the Boken and Joe, which are the sword and the staff. So
Oh, hold on. Before you move on, is there a good teacher that you recommend if that's something I want to practice? Because I am looking for an embodiment practice,
oh yeah.
especially when it comes to bow or sword or things like that. I'm a guy. What can I say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what did a photographer who was taking pictures said, when we work with the Joe, or we don't actually hit the person on the head, we stop like an inch ahead. And this photographer said, "Oh my God, I so wanted to like be able to hit somebody on the head." So that a kind of aggression thing. So my teacher is Hans Goto Sensei. So he's here in San Rafael. He's an amazing teacher. He's a seventh Dan, and he's head of our lineage. So practices. So I have a writing practice. I'm a writer. I've been in a writing group for many years with my dear friend Lori Wagner, who has something called Wild Writing. By the way, she's offering a free 7 days as well. And this might be a good time to mention if you want any of my free things, they're on prsecrets.com. P like Paul, R like Richard, like public relations secrets.com. So if you're wanting to further yourself with media, I have the 100-word email that can get the media to call you. And there's lots of other free videos and masterclasses and anything that you want. So her class, and the reason why it's all the same practice, just in a different form. So this practice that she does, what's called wild writing, is that no censorship, just like I train a media train, there's no there's no editing when we're talking. That comes later, separate process. We're just talking through. So in the writing, there's no taking your hand off the page. So we don't do it on the computer. We do it with a pen. You don't censor yourself ever. So you're just writing Lori reads a poem. She excerpts a couple of lines to jump off from to just get us going, or makes a suggestion, talks about it a little bit. And then we write. And so if you get stuck, you can say, I don't know what I want to say. You just write that. And then and so it's like 5 to 15 minutes we do. And you can also write what I really want to say is, or what I've never told you before is, or what I've held back. Whatever that is, you just keep writing. You can say, like, sometimes I get stuck and I might say, oh my God, this is such crap. I can't believe what's coming out of me today. Here was Lori said it's okay to write crap. Well, I'm doing it, you know, just
Yeah.
keep going. And then what happens is most of the time, not always, right? But you start to drop down and you start to drop your own bullshit
Mm.
and you start to get to that core. That is the same thing like you do improvisation with that flow fam.
Mhm.
It's just that's a medium to do it. These are just different mediums that work on, I think, different parts of the brain. So this is the writing brain. So I'm used to already doing improvisation in so many ways. So that's an improv practice,
Mm.
right? Because there's no censoring. You're just getting down on the page, whatever it is. Then we read, no criticism, no commenting. It is what it is. So that's a practice. My other practice is before I start work, I have a prayer that I say that is open my path before me and let me be of maximum good in the world. So that's
Mm.
what I say every single day. And,
Mm.
and when I do a call like this or when I'm with a client, I always ask that I can be guided for that person's highest good.
Yeah.
So that is, whatever they need, let it come through me. Um, my other practice is so that oh, I was listening to what I don't know how to say his name, Andrej, the
Andre.
Andre, this is
Mm.
cybersecurity guy. Um, I have a practice that before I go to bed, I say something else. So I made this up. Thank you for everything I am and have for all I am grateful. Thank you for everything I am not and have not for all I am grateful. So
Mm.
both of those opposites. Um, and then I may do sometimes I do this walking and sometimes I do this praying. When I was raised a Catholic, so the first type of praying that I would do is say prayers really, really fast and dole them out to people. So
Okay.
so that's what I learned first. Um, Buddhists have a practice where you donate your practice to somebody, but donate's not the right word. You give your practice to people. You know what I mean? So I'm giving this practice, I'm offering it to
Mhm.
to help others.
Mm.
So I do that, and then what I alternate is sometimes I send out good energy to all the people that I love, and then include my neighbors. So I just do that. It's more of an energetic practice. So that's my new prayer. So I don't like dole out prayers like Hail Mary, full of grace. So it's but that's what I learned first. Like you say all these prayers and then you give them away, and that's how you do that. So this is just a different way of doing it energetically. So I do that. And then I know that Andre said, and I want to ask him about this because I'm so curious, that he doesn't say things that he's grateful for outside of himself. He only says
Mhm.
about himself. I'm thinking I would run out of things to say that I'm grateful for in myself in like one night. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you think about what you're grateful for yourself?
Well, it's just well, I mean, similar to your writing practice, right? You just keep going. You go
I
there's elephant, elephant all the way down, turtle all the way down.
thing. Like you can't say the same thing every single day. Like in my book, you can't go, okay, this is what I love about myself. I'm so great. I mean, can you? Like I was thinking, shouldn't it be? Is it different? Is it the same thing every day? Because when we practice a gratitude practice, you try to get more specific about what happened and start to see the smaller and smaller things, right? So
Mhm.
I guess you can do that with yourself. I think it's a lot harder.
I
For
don't
me, it
know.
would be. You?
That's a life's path for sure. Just like how do you describe this mouse? You can describe it infinite number of ways, right? All different kind of
Yeah,
aspects. So
yeah,
you go more and more granular.
yeah.
I
What
mean, I
about
can I can acknowledge you for hours and on for sure. It's not a challenge.
oh, that's so kind of you. So I'm trying to think if there's any other practices. Tell me a little bit about yours, and then that might spur me because I probably have other ones.
In terms of daily practices, well, one of the newest one that I have is tracking my sleep. That's a big one.
Oh God. Okay. Well, on your
Yeah,
is that a ring?
yeah, this is an aura ring, and that's what I'm showing you.
An
I'm not
or
just showing you a ring for no reason. This is an aura ring that tracks your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, gives you a score, gives you a readiness score.
oh,
I'm a biohacker. This is something that I
yeah.
enjoy
Oh,
as
that's
a
neat.
huh?
That's neat.
Yeah, super neat because rather than qualitatively knowing like, oh, how is my sleep, and that actually gives me something that's quantifiable. So that's
Mm,
part of my joy in life, is to do self experiments all day long. So that's
mm.
something that I enjoy doing,
Mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
Now the practices, um, I record a lot of my calls. So this is actually unusual. So I'll just share more of the unusual ones, and that way I can listen from a different perspective. So, because sometimes, especially deep conversations like this, I may not be able to catch it all. You know, the wisdom just zooming by, and sometimes I'm thinking about something else. So for me, listening to the calls are actually really, really helpful for me to like, oh, Susan actually dropped so many gems, I didn't catch it, but now I can catch it
Mhm,
again, right? So
mhm,
that's a way to kind of review the day with a little bit more granularity.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. What else do I do? I started doing breath work thanks to Aura Ring, to really help me basically start my day by hyper oxygenating my body. And then I also have my meditation practice. I share with you on our call, you know, a enlightenment technique that I learned to drop into that um, consciousness, that pure consciousness space
Yeah.
really quickly. That's
Mhm,
something that I do.
mhm.
Also, publicly on this podcast, I share, you know, sort of the plant medicine path is also something that I really adopted, because for me, I want to get into that hyper reality space. So then I can actually really look at what are my truth and what are my illusions, such that I can always step into that place of being the highest version of myself. And
Mhm,
I'm very systematic about how I go about doing that.
mhm,
But
mhm.
there's many, many different paths that I've experimented and tried and different things. So yeah. So right now, my 2021 goal is embodiment practice,
Yeah,
because I'm very developed here.
yeah.
I'm somewhat developed in my empathy. I'm better at it than 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then I want to bring it to the body so it can actually be playful.
Yeah.
Bring play to everything that I do is my 2021 intention.
Yeah, I saw something on a video that I so wanna try so much, but, I mean, when COVID lifts, it was, Zumba, but on these things that were about this high, these bouncing shoes.
Mm,
So there was this much, like, so you would be on the shoes and you were bouncing while doing Zumba, and I thought
interesting.
that looked so fun.
That's interesting.
The reason why I love Aikido too, love hate, because, you know, I'm awkward, but what I love about it, and sometimes I'd be so crabby and I wouldn't wanna go, right? But I would
Mm,
go, and I always felt super joyful after. It was like the biggest joy machine. You asked why I continued it. That's why.
mm,
Because
mm,
it was the biggest joy machine. It's also so fascinating because 'cause I'm 5'2", and I
mm,
throw somebody who's 200 pounds, 6'2". How can that happen? It's through, because you're an engineer, it's through technique, it's through angles, it's
mm,
through motion, rhythm, but it's about getting the right. I think it might appeal to you because it's about, let me see if you can see it. It's about, like, getting the right angle of the other person's body where they're light. You
mm,
can throw them or you can pin them.
mm.
So, again, it's not about, physicality or strength, it's about all of the convergence of those things to make a person light so you can throw them, um, no matter what size or shape they are. And that to me is really fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're definitely kindred
Yeah,
spirit. I do
yeah,
want to ask you some tactical questions. I'm respectful of your time as well, so I wanted to um,
I think it's perfect.
right, get to some key points before we complete our conversation. Um, so thinking back, the younger version of CK, very intellectually developed, you know, has the mind, the heart set in the right place, and they wanted to make a big difference in the world, but he doesn't necessarily know what the message he wants to share with the world yet. What would you recommend him to take on tactically as a way to honing on the message that he can devote himself to step into more prominence?
So the younger CK doesn't know his message. I would say that it's about a process of experimentation where you are seeking what makes you alive. Because I don't think people think, oh, you craft these messages or they just come out of space. No, they come out of your experience. They come out of your desire. So I can't tell you what your messages are. I don't craft people's messages. They do. I help them along that, but they have to have something to say and think and a place they want to go. Otherwise, I'm not the right person to do that. So it's like, what is it that's juicing you? Where is it that your um, curiosity, you use that word a lot. It's where is your curiosity taking you in this moment? You know, that's where we want to look first. Like, what is that? And it's an evolving process. It's not just like a one-time thing. I mean, we didn't go into my background, but I've had, you know, each time it's like it's not one thing. It's like I have a corporate background. I worked for 10 years as a consultant. I have a teaching credential as high school English. My major was Shakespeare. How does that what? Like what does that have to do with anything, right? I was a high-tech startup salesperson, with a company that got acquired by I think it was MCI or Sprint. So I've got the sales background, I've got the teaching background, I've got the corporate background. How did I even get into PR? Well, that was through like a writing class at UC Berkeley, and one of this gal worked for the North Face, and I was trying to move out of sales and more just into writing. And I was like, hey, can I shadow you? And I started doing PR for the North Face and for Title IX Sports, which was now, with three people then or two people, Missy Park in a warehouse, and is now I think the second largest women's athletic wear. So it's all like an evolution. So to say, what is my message? I think we have to start way back to like who you are, what do you stand for, what are your values, what do you want to accomplish, and why. And I think it's that kind of progression. That's why I ask those questions to people who come to me, like what's your big vision? So you don't have to have a big vision. It can be for your hometown. It doesn't matter. It's just what do you want? Why are you doing what you're doing? And who is it going to affect? And then that second part is what do you want for yourself? It's what do you want to receive? It's like here's how I want to give, here's what I want to come back.
Mm,
Develop myself in these areas. That's why we talk about, do you want to be a speaker? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want, where is it? And that's it can be your current self, your future self, somewhere along that continuum.
mm,
You can't possibly start with the messaging until you have in mind the the goal or what it is that you're hoping for. So I'm
mm,
not the person for that, to find out your goal. That's, some kind of coach or something. You have to have the goal when you come to me, or
mm,
have an idea. Like you work with people who've been very successful in business but are developing themselves spiritually.
mhm,
I want to work with those people who know or have an inkling of how they want to make an impact in the world. Like you're developing them spiritually. Well, I consider this a spiritual practice as well,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And then if you wanna make an impact in the world and let's see how you can do that. And maybe the what I want for myself may be more consciousness to be able to give my money away better.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you've got $30 million, you're gonna have to think about how you wanna give some of it away or spend it consciously, right? Like, I mean, at least that would be a question that I would wanna ask. It's like not another house or another jet, like, how many do you need?
Right.
Right? I mean, that would be my how many are you happy with how many? You know what I mean? So we would but it's about what is it? And if you want to explore that, that's great too. But usually people come to me with a certain amount of clarity about what they want to do
Mm.
in the world. Yeah. And if it
Beautiful.
doesn't interest me, I don't work with them. Or if it
Yeah.
goes against my values.
Yeah, beautiful. I so appreciate the way you answer it. The big key word that I heard is curiosity and joy and
Yeah.
aliveness, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
follow that rabbit hole, and then you'll find ultimately what is it that you're up to, and you will help them craft the message, the path to deliver that
Ex-
towards what they want.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
people really, I mean, people, we used to think that we get you in 7 seconds, but I think it's actually in a blink of an eye. We already get you. We already get your presence. We already get who you are. And then the
Mm.
rest is sort of backing it up. Yeah. So it is how you've developed yourself. That's what shows up first. And certainly on camera, that's what shows up first. Because
Yeah.
there's all kinds of distracting things. That's what we're looking at. And we're not focusing on you, your message, who you are.
Yeah. The camera is a magnifier.
Yes.
It shows everything.
Yes.
So actually, on that note, I'm curious to know also as well, because again, thinking back, people like me, founders like me, entrepreneurs like me, were very much focused on the product, and then they're reluctant to go to the limelight. It's not because it's not fame that we want, so it's like the last resort, right? So I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I gotta speak
Last
for my
resort for a
company.
lot of people. You'd be surprised, like, even with these great things, it is their last resort and they don't want it. I get
Yeah.
it.
So how do you help them think about publicity and being on shows and having exposure? Because there's a little bit of a inner tension, right? I don't want the limelight because it's not about me, but I have to do it because it's part of my responsibility and obligation as the CEO, the founder. So I'll do it, but I don't want to do it. So how do you essentially help them think about this
Mm.
rather than like, oh my god, it's a chore. I really don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
I think the first part is we're not thinking about it.
Okay.
So we do wanna get out of our minds and into our bodies.
Okay.
How does it feel? Because that's really what we're going for. How does it feel and how do I wanna make other people feel? Whatever your product is, whether it's technology based or whatever, it's about the experience the person is going to have. And when we can connect that experience with us and really take that out of ourselves again, like, yes, most of us, unless you're a super extrovert, we are going to be having these things, these issues about being on camera and showing up, and then all of our personal mishigas and crap is going to come up. That's just the way it is. And it's not that part. I think the relief of that is the fun part, but the process is sometimes difficult. But if you were thinking about not adding on, but taking away. It's really the Zenification. I'm naming my new course the Zen of Fame. I've had that trademarked, right? The Zen of Fame. It is about the simplicity and the peeling away to get to the essential. And that's for you, and that's for what you're conveying to your audience and what you want them to have. If we can start thinking of terms of really what we want, then the self, I think, starts to recede something, especially when we start to see the fruits of our labor, how we connect with people, how our product or service is going out in the world and having and affecting change.
Mm,
That not that it needs to be not I don't mean that it's outward based like that, that's that we have to have the uh that we have to get that kind of gratification. But I think there has to be some kind of inner gratification for what we're doing that we want, and why we want it. And I think we need to identify that. Like,
mm.
why do I want this and why is it important to me? And then here's how this is one way to get it. And it's the fastest way. Media is the fastest way. It always has been. The
Interesting.
fastest way to get it and get exposed to thousands, millions of
Let
people.
me let me do a quick recap and maybe throw in a metaphor and see if you agree with that. So what I'm hearing you say essentially is really do that distillation.
Mhm.
Who do you stand for? What is it that you want, and who do you want to serve? Have that crystallization, and then use media exposure as a way to serve that purpose, that atomic unit of really who you are. So it's no longer it's a chore because
Yeah.
the chore is about you, the self.
Yeah.
Rather, this is an opportunity for you to really amplify. So media is an amplifier of the impact that you could make. Is that a rough
That's a beautiful
metaphor?
what did you say? What was it? The atomic unit? What was that phrase
The
that you
atomic
used?
unit. Yeah, those are my what I say a lot on this podcast. Like condensing down to the atomic unit of
I like that.
who you are,
I
your
like
purpose, your value, what you stand for, your goals, and then use media as a way to amplify that.
that's a beautiful way. Let's take it down to your atomic unit and then expand it out into media, your town, your community, the world, the universe. I mean,
Yeah.
look at it like that. Yeah. But it isn't about the self. That's the small self. The fraidy self, that's the small self, you know? Um, and there's and I think we're really speaking to your bigger self, and which is, accomplishing, you have this short time on earth, right? And what is it that you want to do with the skills and talents and abilities and personality that you were given? I think that's the question. And all those other things that are blocking us and getting our way, those are the challenges that we need to meet if we choose
Yeah.
to go and give what we said we wanted to give.
Now, I know that in one of your book taglines, you say the art of self promotion without bragging, bagging, or whoring. Is that so? What we're talking about is that's what that bullet means, correct? Focus on
Yeah,
the capital S self, rather than
thank you.
the small s self. Is that accurate?
And yes, and usually when I talk about that, it's like you're not talking about yourself, you're talking about what you're accomplishing through other people. Your mission through it's through people or through your events or through whatever it is that you're doing. It's not about you, like I did this or I did that. It's like here's what's happening. I've fed 2 million people, or 2 million people have been fed because this and that. Or I've you know, abolished sexual slavery. I've created a place where we can, not be so obsessed about the color of our skin or our sexual preferences or whatever that is, right? Like those to me are the like important issues, or whatever's important to you. That's the key, and
Thank,
affecting change in that area.
thank you for that. Do you mind a few more minutes? Do one more question, then we'll wrap. Is that cool with you?
That's good. Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
awesome. So this may be big, so just so that you know. So now we have all kinds of media platforms out there, from Facebook to a podcast to Clubhouse to all kind to general media, TV, radio, and all these things. So from your perspective as a PR professional, PR media trainer, coach, how would you advise the founders and entrepreneurs, the visionaries, to leverage them rather than being like, oh my God, so many things. I can't be doing a podcast and TikTok and Clubhouse and all day because I still gotta an actual thing I gotta do. You know what I mean? So how would you
About my,
help them think about the
yeah.
media landscape?
Where are your people? Where is your audience? Where are the people that you want to connect with and affect? And there may be different audiences. There may be the end product of your user, and there may be the investors, or there may be the partners that you want to connect with. But that's what I would go. That's where I would go first. Like, where are my people in those realms with what I want to accomplish? So you don't. And I'm not suggesting that you do all of those mediums. Um, Choose the one that's easiest to do first, where your people are. So if writing is comfortable, start with writing in podcasts, or writing in, blogging, or getting, being in whatever is easiest to. So I think the convergence of that. I often work with my clients on where does joy and profit meet,
Mm,
too, like those two things. Sometimes um, it has to be something that you can do consistently too. So it's not about like necessarily, there's a difference between loving it and being afraid of it, right? And being accomplished at it. But if you look at it as, how am I going to be skilled in this one area, devote yourself to one thing first and see if you can master it, you know.
yeah. Um, I could talk to you for hours. I
Well,
want to take a moment and just really acknowledge you. Um, I really feel palpably what you stand for. The things that you say on your website, helping people who are doing important things in the world in their own wild way. I want to be part of a bigger picture to be remember having helped them with joy and in spirit to shape their words, thoughts, and deeds. And
Mm,
you really show up powerfully, just the way, you dance with me in this conversation. We went a lot of different places,
did.
and we talked about the tactical things that the founders could do in terms of getting them media ready. We talked about the mindset. We talked about purpose. So really just thank you for the work that you do and the way that you do it with such grace and dignity.
Thank you. That's really beautiful and so poetic. And I want to thank you for being such a beautiful instigator of drawing these things out of people, which you do so skillfully and so masterfully on all of these different personalities. Because I've heard a number of different personality types that you manage to draw out the fascinating things about them, because that's really a skill and a very valuable one, I think, to draw out what's important to those people and important to your audience. And I think we had a playful time.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
I think
For
there's a little
sure.
play in there.
For
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure.
So I really appreciate that.
I look forward to do this again very soon, my friend. Thank you so
Me
much for being
too.
here.
Thank you.